Greetings. Today I have the pleasure of talking with you about updates to GDUFA III as it relates to control correspondence. As stated, I'm Lieutenant Commander Marcia Fields. So I'd like to orient you with the legend that will be utilized in the presentation. We saw this previously with the suitability petition presentation, but essentially the picture icons on the left correspond to topics on the right. So if you see a 3 with a circle in it, it represents we're going to be talking about GDUFA III. Or if you see the light bulb, it'll be best practices. All of these will not be used, but just for your reference. So for our objectives, I'll start with defining some terms, and then I will review a couple of types of control correspondence that we often receive. I'll talk about what makes that correspondence valid, and then wrap up with things that may cause the correspondence to not be considered valid. So what is control correspondence? These are your questions related to a specific element of the generic drug product development process that are asked prior to submitting your abbreviated new drug application. With the two types, the first one is level 1 correspondence, and it can be submitted before an ANDA or after a product-specific guidance teleconference, as we heard previously. It can be submitted after a complete response letter is issued or a tentative approval, or even after the ANDA is approved. With level 2 control correspondence, it must first meet the definition of level 1, and then it either requires evaluation of clinical content, requests a covered product authorization, or interdisciplinary collaboration. And then lastly, clarification of ambiguity indicates that the agency's original response merits further clarification. If an applicant seeks regulatory or scientific advice, the control correspondence related to the ANDA or supplement may be submitted after the complete response letter. The complete response letter must have been issued after the implementation of GDUFA III. The control correspondence should include a copy of the complete response letter, and it should reference the specific deficiency. If a product is available in multiple strengths as it relates to inquiries that are related to Q1, Q2 evaluations, the control correspondence should have a maximum of 1 strength per control correspondence. We also consider different fill volumes, different strengths. So 5 ml, 10 ml, 20 ml fill volumes in 1 control correspondence would be considered not valid. For formulation review, the maximum proposed formulation should just be 3. Whenever submitting inactive ingredient evaluations, please do not submit them in the form of ranges. The formulation description should be adequate, should include adequate details, and it should include the salt and hydration forms, the purity grade or type, the function, and appropriate units. Control correspondence may be submitted related to a pending ANDA, but it must be related to the following topics: inquiries regarding development of a new strength or package configuration. Correspondence may address deficiencies in a complete response letter or to seek further feedback after a product-specific guidance teleconference. Lastly, the correspondence may be submitted during the ANDA assessment cycle to seek a covered product authorization. So let's talk about some best practices. What should be included in a control correspondence? So please submit the inquiries on a business letterhead. The cover letter containing the inquiry should be dated within 7 days of the FDA submission date. We ask that you not forward date the documents. We want to know where you're located and how to get in contact with you. So include the company name, the title of the sender, street address, email address, and phone number. Please don't include post office boxes. If an email domain and the applicant or the US agent or the applicant don't match, please explain the relationship with the email domain and how it relates to the company. Foreign companies pursuing a generic drug approval in the US must have a US agent. The letter of authorization validates and explains this relationship. Domestic companies may assign a US agent as well. The US agents for US-based companies should identify the applicant. All submissions must include the reference-listed drug serving as the basis of submission. This includes discontinued RODs and inquiries related to approved ANDAs. Additionally, we want you to include the previous related control correspondence that were accepted for substantive review in your submission. Please be sure to submit the original correspondence, the agency's response, any information requests sent by the agency, and the response to those information requests. If you found research through the literature, through literature reviews that would support justification for your inquiry, please include it. We ask that you identify a review discipline. Why do we ask that? Because we want you to give thought to your concise statement of inquiry or inquiries, and the topic should fall under one specific review discipline. If there are requests for information related to more than one review discipline, these questions should be submitted separately. A statement regarding a future submission to the Office of Generic Drugs is to be included, and then obviously your specific questions. So our first challenge question, what information should be submitted in a control correspondence? A, it should be submitted on a cover letter, the cover letter on a business letterhead, including previous control correspondence accepted for substantive review that is related, a statement indicating that control correspondence will lead to a future submission to the Office of Generic Drugs, D, all the above, A, B, and C. Your thoughts? D. Common reasons regarding control correspondence that's not valid. So the letter of authorization must be dated annually, issued and dated annually. So we would consider expired if it's not within the 1 year. The Q1, Q2 formulation tables should include the hydration states and grades as expected in the ANDA submissions. If there is no product-specific guidance and the question is related to bioequivalence studies, the correspondence will be forwarded to the product-specific guidance development team, but it's not considered a control correspondence that is accepted for substantive review. So it would be forwarded for consideration. As we heard previously, they are prioritized based on several factors, but it's not a control. So if you were to submit in the future, it wouldn't be one that would be considered related that was accepted for substantive review because we don't consider a valid control. Other reasons may include that there's no date on the cover letter, that it's missing contact information, that it's missing the reference listed drug information in the cover letter or in the portal. This illustration shows that the percentage of submissions accepted for review as control correspondence and the percentage of submissions that are not accepted for review or not appropriate to be reviewed as control correspondence have remained consistent over the past 5 years. And so the pie chart says appropriate versus not appropriate. I've been using the terms valid versus not valid. So the not appropriate represent the not valid and the appropriate represents the valid. So I'll pause for you to see this slide. And we'll move to our second challenge question. What is one common reason that control correspondence is considered not valid? If there are more than 5 submissions in one day, if the US agent represents more than one applicant, if the US agent for the US applicant is in the United States, or if the reference standard is selected in the CDER NextGen portal instead of the reference listed drug because the RLD is discontinued in the Orange Book. Thoughts? D is the correct answer. And so for all the drugs that have a designated RLD, whether it's in discontinued status or not, it still needs to be referenced in the cover letter and in the portal. The exception to this rule is if there is not an RLD designated for the drug, the RS can be selected in that case. So a few of our resources, I want to direct you to first, the draft was December 22, but has recently been finalized, so it should reflect March 2024. The link will take you to the most recent update of that guidance. The reauthorization of the performance goal is what we call the commitment letter. And so these two are the great two excellent resources to start with. The next resources are our YouTube channel is one of those references. That's the last one. The Small Business Industry and Business and Industry Assistance has a rich listing of playlists that I can recommend that you review to familiarize yourself with several things. So there's hours and hours of content for your review. In summary, we defined controlled correspondence, gave some key terms, talked about a few different types of controlled correspondence, provided considerations for what to do and what not to do with those submissions. And before I transition to my colleague, I'd like to leave you with a call to action. So what eases the controlled correspondence submission process? Having a copy of the guidance, the March 2024 edition, the final guidance, knowing what it says, and viewing the content available on the agency's YouTube channel to stay informed. This is a best practice. I'll turn it over to my colleague.
Thank you, Marcia. Marcia has given a general overview of controlled correspondence, and for the next 10 minutes, I will be sharing analysis of controlled correspondence received by the Office of Bioequivalence. The learning objectives are to describe the main categories of controlled correspondence reviewed by the Office of Bioequivalence and understand the scientific rationale of the agency's responses to questions and the major control categories. The FDA generic program received thousands of controls each year, and these thousands of controls are reviewed by different disciplines. And review responsibilities of each discipline are described in the guidance for industry controlled correspondence related to generic drug development. But they are described at a high level. In that guidance, it says OB reviews controls containing inquiries related to the planning of BE studies. OB also reviews questions related to the maximum daily exposure of an inactive ingredient. In addition, OB reviews theses when applicants want to add additional strength to their approved product line and request feedback on whether they should conduct the studies recommended in the product-specific guidance for additional strength. You can see the first bullet point is described at a high level. So we did an in-house survey of all 903 theses assigned to Office of Bioequivalence from April 2021 to March 2023 and break them down into different major categories and subcategories. The first major category OB received is a maximum daily exposure of inactive ingredients. We received more than 700 theses. Scientifically, in general, the proposed amount of inactive ingredients is acceptable if its maximum daily exposure does not exceed the maximum daily exposure of the same inactive ingredients in FDA-approved drug product. for the similar context of use. The second major category is retention samples related to in vivo PKBE study and in vitro BE studies. We received 43 controls, and FDA has published multiple guidances related to retention samples. The third category is other BE study-related questions not covered by number 1, number 2. So we received 101 cases. So we further break down this number 3 into different categories. So for those 2 years, we received 17 controls related to use of a different reference standard other than the one recommended in the Orange Book. We also received 17 controls related to no approved drug available as the reference standard. We also received multiple controls related to BE questions for post-approval changes or for pending ANDAs, and BE questions related to alcohol dose dumping, BE questions for adding additional strengths, comparative dissolution testing, and other categories. And for each category, there may be multiple subcategories. In the next 2 slides, I will be focusing on the top 2 categories. Both of these 2 categories are related to reference standard. Reference standard is drug product FDA selects for applicants to use in vivo BE studies to support ANDA approval. Generally, FDA selects RD as RS, but when RD is not available or the quantity is very limited in the market, so FDA will designate a different approved ANDA as RS if applicable. So we received the controls related to using an authorized generic as RS when the RD is discontinued and approved ANDA is designated as RS. In this scenario, scientifically authorized generic is the same as RD product, so scientifically there's no concern for using authorized generic as RS for in vivo BE studies. We also received controls related to using the RD as RS. In this scenario, the RD is discontinued or its availability is limited in the market, and an approved ANDA is designated as RS, but the applicant already acquired a sufficient amount of RD samples for their in vivo BE studies. In this case, generally, scientifically, it's also acceptable to use RD as RS. We also received controls related to using another approved ANDA as RS or a different strength from RS, NDA or ANDA as RS. Depending on different scenarios, applicants may or may not use another approved ANDA or a different strength of RS as RS ANDA as RS. So it's case by case for the last 2 bullet points. OB also received 17 controls related to no approved drug available as RS. They can be broken down into 2 categories. First one is to use a different dosage form containing the same drug substance as a bridge. The second category is to use 2 individual drug products as a bridge for fixed dose combination products. In both scenarios, the OB's scientific rationale for providing control responses is that if NDA has conducted BE studies to demonstrate BE among different dosage forms or between 2 individual drug products and fixed dose combination products, we generally allow the applicant to use a different dosage form or individual drug products as a bridge to demonstrate BE. So here's the challenge question. Which of the following theses controls is not reviewed by the Office of Bioequivalence. A, alcohol dose dumping. B, maximum daily exposure of inactive ingredients. C, user interface of drug-device combination products. D, retention sample related to in vivo PKBE and in vitro BE studies. Any thoughts? Yes, C. So user interface of drug-device combination products are usually reviewed either by Office of Research and Standards or Office of Safety and Clinical Evaluation, depending on whether it is related to pre-ANDA or ANDA submissions. In summary, OB reviews a wide range of theses, such as questions related to the planning of BE studies or maximum daily exposure of inactive ingredients, and understanding the scientific rationale of CC responses can potentially reduce the number of CCs and facilitate generic drug development. And lastly, I would like to thank my colleagues, Tao, Menina, Bina, and Woodpaw for providing comments on my slides. Yep, thank you. So,